And now, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And yes, welcome to the Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you win in any marketplace. That's what we'd like to do. We interview all types of great business owners, attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, and we have awesome political folks that join us from time to time as well. We got Berny Jacques joining us here in studio. Just a moment, we're going to touch base with him. Also coming up, Dr. Harold Schnitzky going to be on the program. He's a sports psychologist, so we'll talk to him about some of the stuff happening out there in the real world. And before we do, we like to feature our real estate listings live on air, help our sellers profit more, sell faster, utilizing our innovations with radio, TV, and internet marketing. We've got a property on Southwind Drive in Hudson. This is a waterfront property, Gulffront property on Southwind Drive in Hudson. Beautiful property here in Tampa Bay. You can build your dream home. You're surrounded by $900,000 homes up there in Hudson. This is in Sea Pines neighborhood. It's 0.16 acre, gorgeous Gulffront lot, and the lot has no backyard, basically, no backyard neighbor. What you got is kayak access, but you've got beautiful views of open water out there to the Gulf of Mexico. Gorgeous property, Southwind Drive in Hudson, and you can see all of our real estate listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
This is God's country.
All right. Berny Jacques, welcome in, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, man. I know you've been hard out there on the campaign trail. I follow your social, and yeah, man, you've been hustling, so.
We have to, yeah. And we've been at this for well over a year, as you know. I mean, we won a big victory in the primary by almost 20 points. And
nice.
So we're just keeping the momentum going, running to keep our state free. And the momentum is carrying us through. And so we plan a huge victory on November 8th with the help of the voters in District 59.
I love it. Make America Florida.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Not California, not New York.
Exactly.
Make America Florida.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little background. You're an attorney, former state prosecutor, and why did you decide to run?
Well, I want to make sure to protect the freedoms and opportunities that I had growing up, in our great state. And, growing up, my family, we experienced literally the American dream. I had a front row seat to it. I'm a first-generation American. We came here the right way. We came legally from Haiti. Yep. And I saw my parents, literally take advantage of what was in front of us. They both worked multiple jobs. They taught my brothers and I that in this country, you work hard, you play by the rules, have faith in God, all things are possible. And we certainly experienced that. Yeah. But now you're having a different message from the woke left that wants to vilify everything about America. Yep. And people are coming in feeling as if they're victims. We weren't raised on the victim mentality. Right. We were raised that you can do anything in this country. Yeah. And we have to make sure to protect those freedoms and opportunities that allow people to really maximize on their true potential. If we go the way of the left, we're not going to have that. I mean, right. and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're going to just be spinning your wheels, no matter how talented and the initiative you may have, where you can't even see the byproduct of your work. And we have to fight to protect that system that allow people to be their best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, man. Yeah, you look at, if you did follow, the left and some of their woke ideology, when you look at that, it's like it continually changes too. And then once they get tired of you, they spit you out, they chew you up, they get rid of you. They'll turn on you too.
Oh yeah, I mean they're cutthroat. I mean the way I describe the left today, it's not the same, liberals of old. Right. Some of these liberals of old, they used to be live and let live. They used to respect things like free speech. Now these guys are militant. They're like Marxists.
Exactly.
And so, if you don't kowtow and if you're not lockstep with their agenda, they'll take you out to pasture for sure.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely. Did you see the debate a couple nights ago?
Absolutely. Loved it. Yeah, our governor's a fighter. Some of the hip youngsters, they're calling him Ron the Savage. I don't know if you've seen that. That's trending, but he's doing really well. And it's just so Charlie has no substance, right? I mean, the guys are just a career politician. He tries to be slick. But the governor, Ron DeSantis, actually had a record to run on. He ran on his record on our economy because he allowed the state to be open, how businesses were able to go on and people were able to make, their car payments or mortgage payment because they had a job that they could report to.
Yeah.
If it was a Charlie Crist type of administration, folks would have been locked down just as recent as, right now.
Monkeypox or whatever they come up with.
Exactly, right. They would have come up with something. And in fact, Chris was sending a letter to DeSantis when DeSantis was opening up, telling him to shut down. And so that's where we would have been if we had a guy like Charlie Crist as the governor.
Right.
And so the governor DeSantis had a great record to run on, whether it's on the economy, on education, with our kids being able to go back to school, public safety, etc.
Yeah, vaccines. I mean, you look at the fear that was instilled that February, March, April. I mean, just fear was everywhere you turned. Oh, I gotta have the mask. I've gotta, and despite eventually, when truth came out, they would just marry to that decision. They wouldn't change their decision no matter what.
Right. And it just goes to show, and these are the same people who are lecturing us to follow the science. They kept saying that, right. but they were really following leftist ideology is what they're following, because it was not consistent with the science. You just saw that report. They call it the nation's report card that assesses where our students are.
Right.
And our students are lagging behind in critical areas like math and reading.
Yeah.
And even the left-wing media is admitting it was because we kept these kids out of school.
Yeah.
And so DeSantis did the opposite. But back then, if you were criticizing that, you would have been called anti-science.
Yep.
You would have been deplatformed or censored on social media. And now even they are recognizing that, hey, maybe we should rethink what we did when we kept these kids out of in-person learning for all that time.
Yeah, right on. I got a quick clip I'm going to play of Jake Tapper from CNN talking about exactly that.
I have to say, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a national conversation about the damage done to kids because of these school closures and the virtual learning and everything. Because, I'm not saying there should be a national do-over, but we can't just pretend that fifth graders who are now seventh graders, that didn't happen. I feel like...
Really, Jake, how surprised are you?
Well, yeah, we tried to have that national conversation, and the conservatives and anybody with common sense were just shut down.
That's right.
They were like, you weren't allowed to have the conversation. And it just goes back to this new Marxist left cancel culture. Is if you're not lockstep, don't you dare think about bringing different ideas.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden we want to re-examine. The damage is done. Some of these students will never get back on track.
Right.
These are precious years. And the silver lining is, Florida did a lot better with our students because we're open up much sooner in areas of reading and math. And it just goes to show you the proof is in the pudding when you're able to, really do true policy based on facts and not fear. You can get better results.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just joined us, we're talking with Berny Jacques. He is Florida House District 59, running for that seat. He's a candidate, Florida House District 59. Berny Jacques here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. Bernie4Florida.com. Bernie4Florida.com if you want to support. Bernie, you're right on point, man. It's unprecedented, and these are things that growing up in America, you always heard, man, I think about Lee Greenwood, God bless the USA, America, all these great songs, and this, everybody just seemed to, and both sides,
right?
Both sides were just like, yeah, we're America. It
was unifying, right?
The pride,
right.
Man, and what happened to it? So the left came in, right. And it just got sold out to these Marxists.
Absolutely, they vilified our history, they vilified the country, they pit us against each other on the basis of race, gender,
right.
and so forth. And this is the left. This is the work of Marxists. They seek to divide individuals because then they can consolidate control when we're at each other's throats.
Right.
So that's what happened. You're right. There used to be a unifying thing, even though we had different ways of going about policy.
Yep.
But we all appreciated and loved the country.
Yes,
that was never really in doubt.
Yeah.
But now flying the American flag can be triggering,
right,
to some of these leftists. They'll call it a hate symbol. How?
Right.
The red, white, and blue. That's literally our flag. And so this is where we're at right now. We have to restore what this country was founded upon, to bring back some common sense and to get us back to just being Americans. It's okay to disagree, but let's have an open discussion in the marketplace of ideas. It's what this country was founded upon. No one has to agree 100% of the time, but everybody should have a right to be heard and debate the issues and not be shut down, deplatformed, and ridiculed, and have financial consequences to your speech as well. That's wrong. And so that's the kind of thing I'm fighting for when I talk about, keeping Florida free, protecting our freedoms and opportunities, because it used to be a thing that was available nationwide. And now, unfortunately for us, Florida is like that outlier where we can still be free. But hopefully, if we start here in Florida, courage can be contagious. Yeah. And then other states can follow suit, and then we can start saving this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas, Arizona. I love Carrie Lake out in
Arizona.
Arizona.
Gosh, amazing.
I mean, just the way she shuts down the media sometimes. I love those clips.
She's sharp, and she's going to be a standout. Just like we have the great Ron DeSantis, I think we're going to have a kind of a female version there out west. Yeah. And Carrie Lake, I love those videos as well.
Yeah, DeSanta Claus coming to town.
I love it.
Bernie, I want to ask you, too, one of the things that people are really nervous about, and you hear about stolen elections, and it's so taboo. Again, it's another thing. If you bring it up, oh, well, you just, but they forget the clips of Abrams and Clinton and others. How nervous are you, or what's the propensity here for another repeat of the last election with the fraud and what we saw?
Right. In Florida, there's nothing to worry about because our governor has taken extraordinary steps to further secure elections. If you recall, in 2020, in large part due to the work DeSantis did, as soon as he got into office, Florida had the results in on time.
Right.
We're a huge state. We're the third largest state. We encompass 2 time zones between, the Panhandle and the rest of Florida. And we were still able to get our work in.
Yeah.
What's the excuse of some of these other states?
Exactly.
Right? And so my concern, if there's any concern, is some of these other states as to whether or not they beefed up their election systems. I'm concerned about a state like Pennsylvania, where, they were accepting ballots up until Friday after the election.
Yep.
I mean, election day is election day. I mean, let alone, the fact that you have this huge run-up, where people are voting like over a month in advance.
Right.
But how are you still counting and accepting votes after the election?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And so these are the type of things we have to stand guard about, because if we don't have election integrity, then you don't really have a country.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Salem Now has awesome movies on there. Dinesh D'Souza did a great job. 2,000 Mules, and Philadelphia was the number one city for the amount of mules, and then that led to the ballot stuffing and et cetera. But let's take a quick break. More with Berny Jacques when we come back here. He's running for Florida House District 59. He's a patriot, and he loves America. BernieForFlorida.com. Coming up more on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I want to ask him about ESG. As the real estate quarterback show, I own a real estate team here in Tampa Bay, my wife and I want to talk about BlackRock and the trillions of dollars funneling through these ESG systems and what can be done about it. More with Bernie coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, ConsumerQB.com.
Hey everybody, it's the Captain, Matt Bruce, and you're listening to my buddy Brandon Rhymes, a Consumer Quarterback. Sell, Brandon, sell.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at ConsumerQB.com.
Ian Beckles here with my man Brandon Rhymes, a.k.a. the real estate quarterback. Brandon, what's happening with the market?
Thanks, Ian. Any of our listeners out there, we'll offer you a 2% listing for the first 3 callers that reach out to the hotline, 813-917-1894. Call or text the hotline, 813-917-1894. Also, a great opportunity for folks out there looking for a part-time gig, maybe a side hustle, is Keller Williams Real Estate School, powered by Kaplan. Reach out if you'd like more information on how we have a free real estate school for you, online class, get licensed, and start referring business in, or maybe make a new career. 813-917-1894, ConsumerQB.com for our syndicated radio and TV show on 80 outlets worldwide, ConsumerQB.com, or our real estate website at PlatinumMVPTeam.kw.com. That's PlatinumMVPTeam.kw.com. And please follow us online at Brandon Rhymes 1 on Instagram, Twitter, Getter, and check out our YouTube channel, Brandon Rhymes Realty. Make it a great day. Hey, Brandon Rhymes here for Cleaning Commandos here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Cleaning Commandos are hiring, and they're offering competitive wages, flexible hours, relaxed atmosphere, and a sign-on bonus. Reach out if you'd like a career with the Cleaning Commandos here in Tampa Bay. Info at cleaningcommandosllc.com or call 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550. Cleaning Commandos, Consumer Quarterback Show.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
All right, welcome back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, and we help our sellers profit more and sell faster utilizing our innovations with radio, TV, and internet marketing. We're a top 100 ranked real estate team here in Tampa Bay, $2.1 billion in sales out of our 3 offices. That's with the Ubaldini Group here in Tampa Bay. So we help you win, we help you profit more and sell faster when you're selling your real estate. 2803 Safe Harbor Drive in Tampa, $1 million listing from the team here. Beautiful property. This is a gated community, an executive style home, 5,200 plus square foot home. You got a gorgeous estate style home here. It's the Estates at White Trout Lake. Spiral staircase to the second floor, large master suite, granite countertops, new appliances, pool, heated spa, and more at 2803 Safe Harbor Drive in Tampa. One of our hot real estate listings. Also, another South Tampa property at 1618 West De Leon. This is a corner lot, a Mediterranean Palace, just a beautiful property here, townhome in South Tampa, 16S18 West De Leon Street, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bath, almost 2,300 square foot, multi-story townhome, vaulted ceiling, stainless steel appliances, private balconies, and you also have a 2-car garage with plenty of in-unit storage, 1618 West De Leon Street in Tampa, and you can see all of our real estate listings at Platinum MVP Team. .kw.com.
Buy dirt, find one you can't live without.
And you can buy dirt as well. We got about a dozen or so vacant land parcels as well, from big development opportunities, $4 million listings, down to one-off lots available for sale as well. All right, we got Berny Jacques in the house, Florida House District 59. He is a candidate state house rep. BernieForFlorida.com, former state prosecutor, talking about things happening, the woke left ideology, things happening. And one area where it really hits me is where I find out more and more about this, being with my real estate background about 20 years now in real estate, is this ESG, environmental, social, corporate governance, how that plays out. I want to play a quick clip here about BlackRock.
You have a generation that is being completely priced out of the housing market, and then you have these massive Wall Street firms coming in like BlackRock, and what are they doing? They're buying up single-family homes across America to turn you into lifelong renters, to make it so that you can never actually buy into, the housing system, to be able to build equity and to build wealth. And boy, that's not a country that is sustainable. One of the things that actually creates, I think, de-radicalized politics is when people own stuff. People that own homes tend to not burn down Wendy's.
Yeah, people that own homes, don't burn down Wendy's. But yeah, people that own, you have that ownership pride. You're probably building a family at some point. You have biblical philosophies ingrained in you as a kid. You have a husband and a wife, a couple of kids. That 2.2 American kids, right? What do you know about ESG, and what can we do?
Right. It's very pervasive. And actually, the Governor DeSantis has described it as these corporations they're pushing in policies that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get through the ballot box. Right. So they're circumventing the political process that we have as a republic.
Yes.
and are trying to rule us as some kind of corporatocracy and pushing their agenda. And it's a left-leaning agenda. And there's consequences to you not going along with it.
Yeah.
And so it could be anything from literally not providing capital to fossil fuel companies because it runs afoul their environmental, the E part of the ESG.
Yep.
It could be that they come into your company and they're like, or your organization, that your board is not diverse enough, and
right.
so they put a pinch on the capital that you might be able to make yourself that you might be able to access otherwise. So
Yep.
This is an issue, and it's also an issue in housing. That clip, hit the nail on the head. Currently in Florida, we're seeing high home prices, and part of it is because you have companies like BlackRock who are coming in. They're sucking up the inventory.
Yeah.
So with limited supply, obviously it's basic economics 101.
Yep.
Prices are going to go up. And so when you have that company taking in houses that could be single family homes that could be there for purchase,
Yep.
and converting them just to make them only rental, that's gonna contribute to the cost of home ownership here in the Sunshine State, and we have to take it on.
Yeah.
And we have a governor who's already been taking the lead on that. over a couple of months ago, he did an executive order that told the state's fund managers to not consider ESG when investing the state's pension funds. That's a great step forward. A state like West Virginia was taking the lead on that for quite some time because ESG was affecting their coal industry, right? You literally have these fund managers, the same BlackRocks of the world, who are literally attacking an industry where so many West Virginians, made their living off of. Right. And he was like, well, I'm going to be a market participant. We're not going to invest in this, in our pensions. Yeah. And they try to call him, oh, well, you're interfering with the markets, with free markets. He was like, no, I'm a market participant. The state of West Virginia can decide where the money goes. Right. And so can the state of Florida. And so can Louisiana. They did something similar. And you're seeing, I think, Texas as well. So a lot of red states are starting to bow up and say, wait a minute, this is our money. And we're not going to we're not going to subsidize our own demise. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and Governor DeSantis was to take it even a step further. In fact, just not too long ago, we met some of the legislators who won their primaries, who are going to be coming in, including myself. We met with the lieutenant governor, and she mentioned that there will be a package, to do something strong on ESG in the legislative process as well, to enshrine it in law, to take on the woke corporations who seek to really diminish our republic. Yeah. And it's a shame that we have to be at this point, but it's time for red states to fight back.
Yeah, absolutely. Berny Jacques here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, Florida House District 59, Berny4Florida.com. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. I want to move into the next topic also, because it trickles down into home ownership as well, is property taxes, but also insurance. The insurance industry has been hit hard. I think it was something like $7 billion currently. Yeah, over 564,000 claims, and it's projected that it could go up to 40 to $70 billion in damage.
Absolutely. I mean, even before Hurricane Ian, the state was at a crisis when it came to property insurance. I mean, you have some people are paying more on their premiums than their mortgage in some situations, right, or seeing 100% increases. Right. And companies were leaving the state. Citizens Insurance, which is supposed to be the insurer of last resort, I mean, has ballooned in size. Over 1 million policyholders. It was supposed to be a last, resort type thing. Yeah. And so it's unsustainable. And so the governor actually has announced that there will be a special session after the November elections here, to bring the legislature together and to address some reforms when it comes to property insurance to make Florida affordable, because we can't have the situation where, prices are skyrocketing. And to your point, it adds to the affordability crisis. Yes. Because if you homes are already expensive, and then you tack on what you're going to pay, in property insurance, it's going to be a deterrent. It's going to be a barrier to entry, right, particularly to people who are just starting off in the economy. Young professionals who are trying to build young families. Yep. What does that do? And again, we can't have a nation where you have a permanent class of renters. You need people who are homeowners. You need people who have skin in the game. That's how you build a republic, right, and not serfdom, which is what you're going to get in the alternative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great point. We got about a minute left, Bernie. What's your message to the voters? Big day coming up November 8th, and people got to get out there and vote and make their vote count.
Absolutely. I encourage all of your listeners to get out and vote, and not just to get out and vote, but vote for the people who have pushed the policies that have kept our state free. And if there's a common saying that people move with their feet, yes, the fact that so many people have come down to the state of Florida is proof that we're doing something right. Right. And so you need to make sure that we're keeping Governor DeSantis in office. And I would be humbled to also ask for your vote. And to help the governor to keep our state free. You can visit my website, Berny4Florida.com. That's Berny4Florida.com. It's Bernie with a Y, not I-E like the socialist Bernie. Yeah. And together we will keep Florida free.
Berny4Florida.com. Yeah, you got a great story, man. I can see the passion in you, and you're very well read up and versed on this stuff. So it's a pleasure to know you, and best of luck on the November 8th.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And we need everybody to bring other people out. Make sure they come out. Turn out the vote. That's the key. Coming up, Dr. Harold Schnitzky on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Sports psychologist, author, Dr. Harold Schnitzky on the Consumer Quarterback Show. On the flip side of this break, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to My Daddy's Show. Please make sure to send him all of your real estate deals and subscribe to the Consumer Quarterback Show podcast on iTunes and Spotify, or check out our YouTube channel.
A quick shout out to our friends at Replenish IV Solutions. If you want to feel energized, hydrated, and replenished, reach out to Replenish IV Solutions. Say hello to Steve and Lisa Gunnan. Let them know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you. Take them up on those special offers and incentives. Safe and effective way to restore your body's systems with vitamins. It's an injection of good stuff right into your bloodstream. Replenish IV Solutions, Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, Dr. Harold Schnitzky, welcome in, sir.
Good to see you again.
Hey, my pleasure. Likewise. It's been too long. It's been too long, my friend.
I have always enjoyed being here, so thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. And you got your book, you're a published author as well, A Champion's Mindset. Thank you for my copy. I had one, I read it last time, or didn't get all the way through, every single chapter, but you know how we do these days. We skim stuff when we're so busy. But hey, you're working with a lot of athletes, the psychology side of our society right now, I think is one of the most overlooked areas, in terms of once in a lifetime pandemic, masks, lockdowns, all this different stuff. Where do you want to start, my friend?
Oh boy. I guess as you had said in the message, getting ready for today's broadcast for the show, the idea of what was the impact on today's youth. And I always want to start out that children are not little adults. Their needs are different than adults. And I think a lot of individuals may have either forgotten about that or kind of took their eye off that prize. And so children have that ability and need to grow. And as adults, we need to make sure that we're going to be nurturing that whenever possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the pandemic was a massive interference on that natural development. And we're now seeing consequences, unfortunately, associated with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, due to the lockdowns, the kids having to virtual learn, or, a lot of them just missed out on learning altogether. They would just kind of skip that session. And, but yeah, when you look at the kids, they're the future generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the scores academically dropped precipitously.
Yep.
Whether it was just the schools kind of saying, well, we're going to accept what we can accept and be able to be considerate and compassionate, allow people to move forward. But I know a lot of teachers that have been sharing with me that the children coming into their classes this year were just not prepared. So these are the 2 years after the lockdown.
Right.
And so we're starting to see the consequences as the trickle-down effect plays out.
Yeah, exactly. And I was watching the debate a couple nights ago with DeSantis, and, he was talking about Florida at least, having better than the nationwide average, or I forgot where we ranked or whatnot in that line. But so at least some of the free states, I think, when the kids were at least able to go back in there, and also kind of pre-show we were talking about the ability to have sports and to be able to partake in those types of things, get that kind of pent up anger out in some sports, right?
A lot of young adults actually need physical activities to be able to physically release a lot of the energy. But also, it's a great coping skill. It's a wonderful bonding experience. It's a part of their identity.
Yeah.
So we missed out for a year, for the young adults to be able to develop that type of camaraderie, to be able to develop in terms of who they are. And that's unfortunate. It was a method to protect them, but there are also consequences associated with that.
Right. Yeah. And, we've got an open southern border, too. You see, the fentanyl at record numbers. Are you hearing about that or seeing that in your practice, or any parents, kids that you're dealing with? I mean, is it, because it seems like it's record numbers. It seems like when you hear about the number of people coming through, the gotaways, the drugs flying through, the human trafficking, it seems like record numbers.
Well, there certainly are a lot of factors that as a society we need to make sure that we can address. In my practice, fortunately, I am not working with individuals who have been exposed to fentanyl. I certainly know that the amount of fentanyl that is needed to, unfortunately, lead to fatal outcomes is extremely small.
Yeah.
And that's tragic. And so, yes, anything that affects an adult who's struggling, who's got a substance abuse problem, and it's been cut with fentanyl, or a young adult who's exposed to it, it's a terrible tragedy that we need to make sure that we are addressing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just joined us, we're talking with Dr. Harold Schnitzky here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Dr. Schnitzky, he's author of a book, A Champion's Mindset. You can pick it up online, I'm sure. Doc, you do a lot with sports as well, in that realm, and the Olympics you mentioned are coming up. Take us in the locker room sometimes. What are some of the things you tweak with people?
Well, it was interesting. During this last couple of years, we had the shift from having packed stadiums to empty stadiums, and people were asking, how are your athletes going to manage that? And now we're back to packed stadiums. The curious reality is being able to take a look, and we said this before the show, a lot of these elite athletes have had perfectionistic tendencies to push them, to drive them.
Yep.
But perfectionism is a double-edged sword. It also is a singular outcome, which we don't control. So I'm emphasizing to the athletes I work with, it's not perfection you want to strive for, but excellence. Perfection is singular in outcome. Excellence is your capacity to be ready, prepared, have that mindset to be in the moment. There are 3 things that do not matter in sport. 1 is the name of the event, 2 is the number of people watching or who's there, and the 3rd is the trophy that you could potentially win. None of those are within your control. The name of the event, who cares? It doesn't matter. We can call that hippos fly south for the winter. The name doesn't change the laws of physics, but if you get consumed and distracted by the gravity of the motion, the situation, that's where performance decreases because you have self-imposed stress. If it's you're focusing on, oh wow, we have no one in the crowd. Okay, and oh, we're full now. If you're focusing externally, that's another factor that you don't control.
Right.
By the way, not a single one of those people touch you.
Right.
So if I focus on them, I'm not focusing on me and in the moment. And also the trophy. Well, that's an outcome. There's literally nothing I can do when it's trophy time. It's everything that leads up. So we always talk about its process, not outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it makes a lot of sense. So name, number one, you talk about name. That's when you're getting, you see people choke because it's the championship game, the Super Bowl. Is that what you mean by name?
It's their perception of it. If I'm thinking, if I call something the biggest event of my life, holy moly, I have to change my shorts. I mean, this is a seriously overwhelming reality.
Yeah.
However, it's still the same thing. The Super Bowl is still 100 yards. You have to get 10 yards for a first down.
Yeah.
So like the pitchers I work with in the World Series, it wasn't the World Series that they're throwing the pitch in. It's not for the championship.
Yeah.
We have them go through this pre-shot routine, and they do it every single play. The tennis players, everyone sees the athletes that I work with where they go through this diaphragmatic breathing, muscle relaxation, visualization. Every point starts brand new.
Yeah.
It's not the name of the event. I'm not throwing this pass in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm throwing a pass to my teammate. I have to execute. I have to trust that they're going to execute.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to break it down to for each athlete.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you look at the Bucks lately. Tom Brady, the Bucks, Mike Evans, the drop. What would you say, or what are some of the topics that you discuss with professional athletes, or I guess it translates to any level? Really, kind of what you're saying is, focus on the moment, have that pre-game ritual that you're doing.
Yep.
And so it's interesting to see though. Bucks had high hopes this year. Man, we're kind of heading the wrong direction.
We should always hold ourselves to high levels of expectations. There's realistic and unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I think some individuals might have had an unrealistic expectation of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Having realistic expectations allows us to then keep it in perspective. So I have to learn from it. And I always talk about after something happens, a stroke, a point, a pass, whatever it might be, you want to ask yourself what's called a post-shot routine. Everyone's got a pre-shot routine or a pre-game routine. But the post-shot is actually what's far more important, and it differentiates literally the best of the best from the rest. And so you ask yourself, well, actually, let me walk you through it. We all react. If it's positive, happy.
Right.
If it's bad, negative. Your emotions, you don't learn from it. You have to be able to shift in terms of the way you process it. So you want to ask yourself, what was the plan? What actually happened? And what do I learn from this?
Yes.
It's the what do I learn from it? Because otherwise you dwell on the past, and that's where people say, I was in a slump. Well, that just means you were dwelling on the past. We don't worry about the future. You don't control the future.
Yeah.
So the goal is to increase my probability of success. And lastly, there are things outside of my control that I don't want to expend energy on. And for those of your audience, you can think about this when I go and present to a board meeting. When I'm meeting a prospective customer who's going to one of the houses that you're showing. You may do your best, but that doesn't control the outcome.
Right.
There are never any guarantees. So what can you do to increase your probability of success?
Yeah. Focus on the future.
If I'm in the moment, like the houses that you were just sharing right now, fantastic. You have a way of presenting it. You have to understand who you're working with, find out what their needs are, and be able to speak to them. In sport, we have to find out what our needs are on the team. You don't just pick the best player. I have to pick the best player for our team.
For the team.
Yeah.
For the
I
position.
think a couple of the NFL teams are finally getting that with, they have exceptionally athletic quarterbacks that they try to shove into their system.
Right.
And I believe this year they're letting them now do their skill set.
Right.
And so the offensive coordinators are adapting their systems to the quarterback instead of trying to jam the quarterback into the system.
Yeah, that's right. It makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Those pieces fit together. They should complement each other, and it's going to help you, take the team, to the next level in that case. Yeah. So I love that. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, more with Dr. Harold Schnitzky here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, and also our feel-good story of the day. Hero couple saves babies from burning building while on their honeymoon in Spain. Feel-good story coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, I'm Ken Shamrock, and you're here with Consumer Quarterback Show. And I say, Brandon Rhymes, knock out your competition.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Dennis Prager here for Brandon and Lindsay Rhymes, owners of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams. Buying, selling, investing in real estate, their nationwide Keller Williams network makes them the best team to work with. Sellers, have your property featured live on air, creating multiple offers. Buyers, leverage a unique system that gets your offer accepted, never overlooked. Call or text 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550, or consumerqb.com.
Have you desired more income and more freedom in your life? Now is your time. Keller Williams Realty has just launched our own real estate school, and you can get licensed for free. I'm Brandon Rhymes, host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And for the first 3 people who reach out, I will personally coach you. 813-917-1894. Call or text 813-917-1894. ConsumerQB.com. ConsumerQB.com.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here. Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you win in any marketplace. Dr. Harold Schnitzky here in studio with us, local psychologist and author, A Champion's Mindset, great book. He works with a lot of athletes as well, and we're going to talk a little bit about children as well, how we can help the kids, in their situations, what they're seeing in society today. Also, coming back from an injury, the psychology of coming back from an injury, coming up here in just a moment. Before we do, we always do a feel-good story of the day.
Tell me something good.
All right, so we got a hero couple that saves babies from a burning building while on their honeymoon in Spain. So it's an interesting story here. They're basically on their honeymoon over in Barcelona, Spain, which I've been to. A beautiful city, by the way. I love, that was an awesome trip, a Mediterranean cruise that I went on. But a recently married couple, Doran Smith and David Shaquille, they waited over 2 years to go on their honeymoon due to the COVID pandemic and lockdowns. They're from Bristol, Rhode Island. A couple decided to take a walk in Barcelona and enjoy the tour and what they thought was going to be an uneventful day. But during their walk, they noticed something was out of the ordinary. Women are running out of a building. They were panicked. So they went to a nearby, there was a building that was on fire. The newlywed couple ran into the building without giving it a second thought. And they went into a nursery. So it was a bunch of sleeping babies that were inside this building. And making matters more interesting is no one inside spoke English. So they just started, apparently they just started grabbing babies and running them out of the building. So that's that happened in Barcelona fire crews, and there's a quote saying they had walked around the park as planned, as if it was a normal day after, and talk about an unforgettable honeymoon. So there's your feel-good story of the day. Dr. Harold Schnitzky in studio here. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. And Doc, so we talked about, we wanted to touch on two things: helping kids with the different situation, what they're facing today, and then also the psychology of coming back from an injury.
Okay. The first of those, the idea of helping our kiddos as they move forward, come back to the life as it, hopefully the new normal, whatever that definition is.
Right.
We always talk about that there are two main factors when we look at helping these kids or children during a crisis, and prevention. So the same concept, what we want to be able to take a look at is the concept of feelings identification and communication skills. If I don't know how I emotionally experience a situation, I'm more likely to become overwhelmed by it. I either act it out through behavior or act it in through depression or anxiety. So being able to identify the range of emotions. Usually, you ask your kid how they doing, and they're going, good.
Yeah, the one-word answer, good.
Yeah. It's like, that's not really a great definition. So actually giving them a vocabulary.
Yes.
So I'll do this thing called feelings alphabet with families, and grab a piece of paper or a whiteboard and just write the letters of the alphabet down and just go around the table with the family and just come up with different emotional words, feeling words that begin with that letter, and just go one at a time through it all and then start again. At the end, you ask your child, like, what do they notice? What do you see? Positive, negative words, a lot of feeling words. And to help them to understand them a little bit more, you can then put them on a feeling continuum from minus 100, neutral, to positive 100, and go across and actually start placing them in where they belong. So if someone says, I didn't get my snack today, and they go, oh, it makes me depressed. Does it really make you depressed?
Yeah.
I mean, let's kind of put it in perspective. And so that's helping them to understand the terminology to express their emotional state.
I like it.
The second part of that is communication skills. If I know how I emotionally experience the world, but I can't communicate it in a way to address it, resolve it, I'm more likely to become overwhelmed by it.
Right.
So either act out behavior or act in through depression or anxiety.
Right.
So now you start working on communication skills. And as you're seeing me and as we talk at the break, there's a lot of nonverbal.
Yeah.
So one of the ways we like to be able to do that is feelings charades, where you actually start out, here's the emotional word. Now just act it out. Let's see if we can all communicate that. Because a lot of times it is the nonverbal way that someone communicates that truly sends the message.
Right.
And a lot of kids through this pandemic have not been able to express themselves because the stress that's been going on, either expressed by possibly their parents, the news that they're seeing, the conversations online, can be very daunting to a lot of these young adults. And they end up having this idea of like almost FOMO, the fear of missing out. To see someone posting something, I'm not there, it's negative about me because I'm not part of it. They could also see some pretty extreme things online, a lot of bullying, things of that nature. And so we have to help our children from a preventive point of view. And the first two is feelings identification and communication skills.
Yes, I like that. So to identify, this is how I'm feeling, this is why, and then trying to figure out the root of that. And then also, when it comes to children too, in parenting, you look at boundaries, right? Like boundaries with fences. There's a fence boundary, there's a more of a firm boundary. Talk to me a little bit about how boundaries can help.
That's a lovely topic. Thank you for bringing it up. There are three aspects about that we really want to kind of tap into. And I apologize for using psychobabble in this one here. There's ego strength, and I don't mean like a grandiose mindset. Ego in psychological terms is identity. So ego strength, my identity of who I am. Ego boundary, like you just talked about it, and ego differentiation. So ego strength is, I got to get to know who I am. Am I a nice child? Am I a loyal one? Am I honest? Am I hardworking? Am I smart? Am I an athlete? The more ego strength I have, knowing who I am, the less overwhelmed or impacted I will be by external forces.
Right.
Ego boundaries is I know where I end and you begin. Everything I think, feel, say, and do makes sense to me and is a reflection of me, and everything you think, feel, say, and do is a statement of you. You bully me, that's not a statement of me, that's a statement of you.
Right.
So ego differentiation is knowing that your behavior reflects upon you. I no longer personalize your comments. And so having boundaries, understanding where I end and you begin, teaching your child to not necessarily have to personalize other people's actions, but that's a statement of the other person.
Yes.
And then when you talk about how does a child assert themselves when they have a boundary, I always like to talk about this. It's a 6-step process, and it's actually the acronym to assert yourself. It's assert, ASSERT. You have to, if someone hurts me, lets me down, disappoints me, I need to be able to gain that person's attention. So I can't just be yelling across the house. If someone's distracted by something, I'm not really approaching them that way. So I need their attention. So, excuse me, Brandon, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
It has to be soon after something takes place. It's the AS. So it can't be like 6 months ago. I don't remember what happened 6 months ago. So soon or shortly after it takes place. I need to be specific about the behavior. So I'm not name calling or cussing you out. That just shuts you down and gets you defensive.
Yeah.
I'm telling you the behavior that was unacceptable, specific behavior that's unacceptable. I then talk about E, the emotion, the effect it has on me. I felt this, Dad, when you promised to take me out and you didn't.
Right.
I felt devalued. I know we're divorced in our family, but you're not divorcing me as your child.
Right.
Then you have to offer up the acceptable response. So if I'm approaching someone, only I know what I consider acceptable. I just told you what was unacceptable. Here's the new response. And lastly, the new terms of the relationship. I don't control you, but hopefully you value this relationship enough that I say, I really would like to be able to spend time with you, but if you keep doing this, I don't know if I can keep hanging out with you.
Right.
So asserting oneself is based on my boundaries and being able to speak up.
Yeah, I like that. Awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks.
All right, the other question was the psychology of overcoming an injury or a surgery or something along those lines. By the way, it's Dr. Harold Schnitzky here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. If you just tuned in, Dr. Harold Schnitzky.
Injury rehab, I have an entire chapter just on that in the book.
Yeah.
It is so common. Too many athletes go into their rehab, I would have to say, with a negative attitude and passively. So it's like, I can't believe I'm sitting out. Someone else is going to take my spot.
Right.
I'm never going to get back in.
Right.
Well, then they go into their physical therapy, and it's just like, all right, let me do my 10 quad and a extension and a whatever.
Yep.
Am I done for today? Okay, great. Thanks.
Right.
When they take a passive approach, they never really put themselves into the proper mindset and experience that, am I ready to get back in? And so there are 4 things I always emphasize on this. When you're doing your injury rehab, you have to understand, first off, injury naturally happens for elite athletes. And the reason why I say that is regular people in society wake up, get a cup of coffee, go to work, have lunch, work, come home, and they get injured. Elite athletes are pushing themselves to their physiological limits. Injuries take place. So when I get injured, rather than looking at it negatively and lamenting, I can't change that it's happened already.
Yeah.
So I need to have the mindset of, I want to come back from physical therapy stronger, faster, more flexible, with full anticipation of getting back in. So when my orthopedic surgeon or my physical therapist says, you're concluded with your treatment, you can head on back.
Yeah.
You're not on the sidelines kind of going, I don't know if I really am. I haven't really pushed it.
Right.
You want to use this, and I always tell my athletes, rather than complaining that you're injured, you oftentimes say you don't have an off season. Let's look at this injury time as your off season.
There you go.
You're not going to get re-injured. Let's look at this as an opportunity to get in better shape than you were before.
Right.
Which is kind of what we've done, all the athletes I work with the pandemic. We actually got in better shape than we were pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So
take the passion into that.
Yes. Converting it into something productive, stronger, faster, more flexible, with full anticipation.
What's the best website for you?
www.drschnitzky, DrShinitzky.com.
All right. Always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that, Doc. Great conversation. Those are awesome nuggets there. I love that assert one. So, hey, another great show. We want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. Be a force for good in the community. And we'll see you next time. Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Call Brandon Rhymes at 813-917-1894. That's 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for The Consumer Quarterback Show.